Welcome to the Hitachi ID Systems demo series featuring Hitachi ID Bravura Identity. This video will illustrate how new segregation of duties violations are prevented when requesting additional access, and also show that violations can be approved as an exception or time-limited. Segregation of duties, or SOD, is an internal control designed to prevent error and fraud by ensuring that at least two individuals are responsible for the separate parts of any task. SOD involves breaking down tasks that might reasonably be completed by a single individual into multiple tasks so that no one person is solely in control. In this way, one user cannot gain control for nefarious or unauthorized purposes, such as perpetrating fraud or embezzling company funds. SOD rules must be enforced to detect existing violations through discovery and to prevent new violations from occurring during the time a request is submitted. In addition, sometimes a temporary exception is required when a request violates an SOD rule. Employees require the ability to request account, group, or role entitlements required to perform job tasks, and to request a temporary exception when a request violates a business rule. Businesses require the ability to auto-reject requests that violate business rules regarding role or access conflicts, and to authorize requests for temporary exceptions to rules. Using Hitachi ID Bravura Identity, toxic combinations of entitlements defined as SOD rules are blocked at request time. Detection works even when entitlements are nested or pending. This means that the SOD rules do not have to be defined just at the role level. Entitlements are broken down into their finest grained elements and evaluated as such. Pre-existing violations can be detected and routed through the workflow engine for remediation. Approved exceptions can be used to request entitlements that would normally trigger an SOD violation. An access certification campaign can be run to review existing SOD violations with or without approved exceptions. In this scenario, I'll be using a Hitachi ID demo environment with Bravura Identity to demonstrate how a segregation of duties policy is configured to prevent users from being members of two conflicting groups at once, and to allow user exceptions upon request and approval. Once the rules and exceptions are configured, I'll demonstrate the functionality by logging in as a user from one of the rule groups and submit a request to join the other rule group. This will trigger a violation, and the user will then request an exception so they can join the conflicting group temporarily. The exception will be approved by a specified exception authorizer, and the group membership will be approved by the workflow manager. To configure the segregation of duties policy, log into Bravura Identity as an administrator or permitted user. In this demo environment, I can bypass authentication. The first thing that needs to be configured is a segregation of duties rule with the desired resources. This is accessed via Manage the System, Policies. Existing SOD rules are listed here. Click Add New to add a new one. Enter an ID or name for the rule, and then enter a description. Enable the rule to have it applied right away. Leaving this checkbox unselected allows exceptions to be requested. For number of entitlements a user must have to violate a rule, the default value of 2 means that if the user has 2 of the rule's configured resources, they will be in violation of the rule. Click Add. The new rule is added, and the General tab is displayed. A resource team, number of days before expiry of requested exceptions to the rule, and extended attributes can be specified if desired. I'll leave these as is. Next, authorization users are configured. Here, users specified will be invited to approve requested exceptions to this rule. By default, a single-phase authorization type is added. Specific users or a user class can be selected. For this example, I'll select a user class. I'll search for and select the IT Security user class. In the Participant Mapping column, map the user ID to Authorizer. and then click Update. Now we can move on to entitlements. This is where the resources that make up the rule are specified. The default view shows account entitlements. Subtabs here allow you to also specify managed group or role entitlements. For this example, we're testing groups. To add the groups, click Select. First, I'll search for and select the Linux Finance group. Then, same for the Active Directory Temps group. Note that segregation of duties rules can be enforced across different platforms. The rule has been configured. Clicking on the Violators tab, we see that user Dino K is in violation. He has both the Linux Finance and AD Temps group resources assigned to his profile. Automation can be set up to resolve user entitlements that are shown to violate segregation of duties rules. Next, I'll show what happens when a user that has one of these group resources assigned to them attempts to request membership to the second group resource. I'll log in to Bravura Identity as Craig. Craig is currently a member of the Linux Finance group. I'll have him request to join the second group in our rule, Active Directory Temps. From his home page, under My Profile, he clicks View and Update Profile. Scrolls down to the Request section and selects Change Group Membership. Craig searches for the Temps group and selects it. He can add any notes to go along with the request, and then clicks Submit. We can see that the request has not been submitted because it violates the new rule. The violated rule, resources in violation, and the threshold are shown. Craig can request a temporary exception to this rule violation. In other words, provide a reason why he should be allowed to request joining the group despite the violation. To submit an exception request, he clicks the check mark here and specifies an expiry date for the accepted entitlement. The default is a month from the current date. When the date of expiry is reached, the Temps group membership will be removed automatically. Then he types a reason to justify the exception and clicks Apply to request the exception. Finally, Craig clicks Submit to submit the join request. Clicking View Request, then the request ID, allows viewing of more request details. Scrolling to the bottom of the page, we see the groups to be assigned and requested exceptions to segregation of duties rule sections. Approval is required from a member of the IT security user class for the rule exception and from Bernardo for the requested group membership. First, I'll log in as an IT security user and approve the rule exception. I'll select Billy. We see she has a notification. There is one request awaiting her approval. Billy clicks on that and selects Craig's request. The group membership portion of this request does not require authorization from Billy. We do see, however, that there has been a rule violation for this request. Clicking on the request ID provides more details. An exception has been requested for this violation. Billy can review the proposed expiry and the requester notes Craig added here, and determine whether or not she wants to approve. Billy closes the request details and approves the exception. If I now return to Craig's view, close his request details window, and refresh his request, we see the request status still shows needs authorization. The exception has been approved, but not the group membership. So now I'll log in as Bernardo, who is a workflow manager. Like Billy, we can see that Bernardo also has a notification. There is one request awaiting his approval. He clicks on that and selects Craig's request, also clicking on the request ID to view more details. And scrolling to the bottom of the page, Bernardo can see the groups to be assigned, pending his approval. He notices that Billy has approved an exception request to a rule violation. He closes Request Details and approves the group join request. Returning to Craig's view once more and refreshing his request, we see the request status now shows processed. Opening Craig's profile, we see he is now a member of the AD Temps group and the Linux Finance group, which would normally be a violation, but his exception was approved by Billy until the specified expiry date. There is an audit history for granted exceptions to segregation of duties rule violations. Using Billy, let's take a look. By first clicking Home. Then, under Administrative Options, click Manage Reports. Navigate to the Segregation of Duties reports and select the Approved Exceptions to Rules Violations report. From here, you can select to return a detailed list of segregation of duties rule exceptions. Specify a rule if desired. I'll select the new exception test rule. And even select a specific user. I'll leave this blank. Once report settings are configured, click Run. Here, a detailed list of any approved exceptions to the specified exception test rule is displayed, including each entitlement in the rule, the requester reason, the authorizer, and the expiry date of the exception. This concludes our demonstration of segregation of duties enforcement with exceptions allowed, using Hitachi ID Bravura Identity. Thanks for tuning in. Hitachi ID offers a range of demonstration and training options. Click the links in the description below to watch more demo videos or to register for training. Visit our website to learn more.